This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
Hello, welcome to Undistracted. I'm your host, Laura Bennett, and this is the podcast where we learn from our guests how to be better at building our lives with intention around our passions, our purpose, and dealing with some of the stuff that gets in the way of it. Heartbreak is a fickle thing. It affects all of us differently. It can bring about feelings of grief as well as those of relief and mark significant seasons of change. Today's guest, Charlotte Ree, is an author and home cook. When the world turned upside down in 2020, Charlotte was 29, newly divorced, and unexpectedly thrust into lockdown with loneliness, confusion, and a wobbly sense of identity after her 10-year relationship. In her bittersweet memoir, Heartbake, Charlotte combines her story of love lost, won, and lost again with recipes that helped her rediscover herself, her community, and a life she really wanted. Let's welcome Charlotte to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello.
So let's start with your love of baking. What do you remember about the first time that food was something that enticed you, that you wanted to savour the preparation of?
I mean, what kid wouldn't want to dig into a bowl of baked goods, really? But my mum was sick a lot growing up and in hospital, and my nan would come look after us. And as a way to sort of cope with mum not being there, nan would distract us by baking. And we'd make jam drops together. And Nan always likes to say that I would eat more batter from the bowl than would actually go into the cookies themselves. But even now, if I beat like butter and sugar together, it just totally transports me back. And it's a total sense of comfort and place and just feeling really loved. And I think that's why food is so important for all of us, and feeling is so intertwined. But for me especially, there's such comfort in those memories.
When did food become connected to romantic love for you?
Well, when I met my husband, and he was from a family of restaurateurs, and I had sort of come from the country. I grew up in Lismore, and my family were what my ex-husband would describe as white people food, and would make, casseroles and meat and three veg. But he sort of was so eclectic in everything that he'd made and introduced me to so many different cuisines. So every meal with him felt like an adventure, which was really exciting.
What sort of influence did he have over your love for food? The expanding palate is probably in the mix of that, but it's kind of this changing dynamic to see what food could be.
Completely, and the potential of it. And I was always so envious of him because he could open up any refrigerator and just be able to make something from just what was there, the basics, whereas I could not do that. It's like I couldn't see the way forward, but I'm proud to say that I can now do that, which is great.
Yeah, I hear people like that and I just think you're the perfect contestant for Ready, Steady, Cook or MasterChef or something. Like, throw you in and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Imagine Ready, Steady, Cook. I forgot about that show.
Oh, yeah, it's a definite throwback. But in the way that you describe, your life, your relationship to Diego, there's something very poignant, I think, when we start to see how things start to unravel a little bit. And you use this line where you say that your soul would not have survived staying in that marriage. It feels so visceral and I think very relatable to a lot of people. Why did you feel that way?
I think relationships are over before they're actually over. Physically, I think emotionally, one person, or both people often have kind of left that. And I just felt like it was just work. It was really hard work. And a lot of that was that I couldn't see who I was. I had no idea who I wanted to be. And all of that was because I spent a long time in our relationship kind of building him up and looking after him in the same way that I'd done that with my career. And I guess I could kind of see what the future would look like if I had stayed, and it was bleak, and that was really crushing and soul destroying in a way. But that was just, I think, mostly because I didn't know who I was myself.
What did you do to start to take steps toward discovering who you were?
Therapy was a big one. Absolutely. And finding just a safe space to kind of have those conversations that I couldn't in my relationship, or didn't feel like I could in my friendships because, I had been with that person for 10 years. And so you were wanting to kind of protect that as much as, what if I did stay, but then I'd revealed all of these things about the piece of my relationship to someone. So to have that third party and that safe space was really, really crucial. And I think also just doing things for me and taking up things for me, which now, a couple of years on, is like swimming almost every day and doing laps or exercise. I never thought I would be someone who found joy in exercise.
Yeah.
And yet here I am.
Well done for achieving that, because no, it's not something that we all like get to at all. But your relationship, I mean, it started pretty young, 19 when you met Diego, and then, like you say, you were together for a decade. Do you feel like that age played a part in how you viewed and then grew through and eventually out of that relationship, or not really?
Absolutely. Like, without a doubt. I think when you get together when you're that young, you either grow up together or you grow apart. And also, I think timing is everything. You could have like the perfect relationship, but you are both at different phases or stages and wanting different things. And I think ultimately that's what it was. We just ultimately wanted different things. And getting together at 19 is a really young age to kind of think that at 30 you're going to be that same person or have those same mindsets. And I certainly never thought of myself as someone that would get divorced. I came from a broken family, as some people like to describe it. I call it blended or curdled. But I remember before we got married, me kind of saying like, we can never get divorced. That's the one thing. And yet here we are. But also ultimately, I don't think that we live in an age now where you have to stay in a situation, a relationship, a friendship, a work life if it doesn't fulfill you or meet you where you need to be anymore. We're quite privileged in the sense that we can walk away, and I certainly was able to do that.
It's so difficult, I think, that realization, because I think even though in our culture we do have this permission or this sense of agency in making those big changes, I think all of us in the ideal life that we dream of and the expectations we set for ourselves, we always want to repair instead of break. Like, there's still a sense that repairing is always better than pulling something apart. How did you deal with that realization that in your circumstance, breaking was going to be the better thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole idea of like what I'd call like rupture and repair, but it felt like an immense failure. I can't deny that. There was so much guilt and shame associated with having left my marriage, and something that took me a really long time to reconcile with, that I wasn't a bad person for doing that. I'd actually done both of us a really great thing because, we both can kind of meet now and come together and go, oh my God, like we had a really great few years, but thank goodness that we were able to, as our couples therapist put it, we still had our whole lives ahead of each other. We weren't in our late 60s or something. We didn't have, multiple children or multiple houses. We were able to really beautifully go, that's putting kind of like a bookend on that, and it's time to go on with the next phase.
And you're so vulnerable in how you talk about it within Heartbake and connecting, as I think you're the first author I've seen to do this, where you do intertwine memoir with the recipes that really helped you process everything that was happening in life.
Yeah.
Drawing those two together, creating that kind of world in the way you've done that with your book. What made you come to sort of that idea, I guess, that was going to be the way to tell this story?
I suppose it was intrinsic for me. Like, it had to be both. I am someone who hates having cookbooks where they talk about the recipe, but then there's no picture or you can't bake it or make it. And so it always had to be that way. I had done a cookbook a few years ago and, I'd read a lot of memoirs in the research for this and probably a lot of time procrastinating reading those, avoiding my writing. But I think what a lot of them taught me was that I wanted to be able to recreate the things that people were speaking about.
Yeah.
And so I wanted people to be able to make my pa's pesto or my mum's spinach pie, that were recipes that when I couldn't travel home because of COVID, I would make to sort of comfort me. Or when I fell in love again, I wanted people to be able to make the brownies I took to my partner every week, and have that kind of gesture of giving and recreating.
It takes you into the story in a very visceral way, which is so beautiful. And I find it interesting as well that in one part of your story, as you tell it, Diego was super critical of your cooking. He didn't like it too much. How does he feel now, knowing that you've essentially got recipes that the world can taste and that we enjoy?
Oh, and I can't speak for him, but, one example I can give is lasagna, which is the first thing that he kind of made in my dodgy share house when we first started dating. And he taught me how to make the ragu and the bolognese sauce, which I had only ever known was, the Legos from the jar situation. And he taught me how to make it from scratch. And when I made him lasagna, he said that, he was so proud because I could now make it better than him. And I think that was really beautiful. I think with every relationship I've had, whether that be romantic or familial or, you know, what have you, that might not be as strong as it once was, I think you can look at it and see the gifts that it gave you. And for me, he certainly showed me the world of flavor and the world of food, and for that I'll forever be grateful.
And you are very honouring of that relationship, and you've been at pains to make sure people know, like, while some of the habits we see in the book are a little bit controlling, or you can see the little fragments of why things may not have worked out, there's also such a beautiful intention. Like, you know that he was well intentioned with some things, but then you start to see, my goodness, I was allowing myself to be controlled by these things in a way that I shouldn't have been.
Totally. And this is the thing, like, everybody is flawed, and I can't sit there and say he was perfect, but my goodness, I wasn't perfect either. And I suppose, you know, a great thing for me was that I had the beauty of growing up with my mum and her dad, but then my mum's stepdad, and we'd all have Christmases together. And then I had my mum and my dad be really amicable, even though they weren't together. Like, I never grew up in an environment where a breakup had to be this really traumatic, toxic thing. And so I never have really had my mum badmouth my dad or anything like that. So I never sort of saw that as a way that if this relationship ended, that's what this was. And I guess that's why I write in the book, it's not a story of revenge, because it's not. I can totally look at that decade and be really grateful for, you know, all of the things that we accomplished together and all of the things that we were able to do. But I can also be really grateful that I'm not in that relationship anymore.
Yeah, that's such a gift that you had that, because not everybody gets that, but also not everybody gets to experience what you did, where your eyes are opened to the things that you were kind of living under or allowing to control you as well. Like, was there something that particularly opened your eyes up to that sort of situation you found yourself in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to just come back to the magical capital T of therapy. I found an incredible psychologist who was a real rock and a real sort of retreat for me at that time when everything was so bleak, and to sort of have that third party where there are those boundaries and that person's not in your life. And she really held a mirror up to me, which I think is what I wanted. I think for the first time it was someone really seeing me and acknowledging me. But a lot of that too is me having to sit there and own my part in that problem too. And as I said, you know, nobody's perfect, and I certainly had a lot of flaws as well.
Yeah, and you pull a really interesting quote from Philip Roth, where you say that love, where he says, you know, love isn't something that actually completes us, but it's something that can break us apart. Why do you think that is?
Because I think when you love, and certainly how I love, I'm all in, and you can't be all in and still have one foot out the door. You've got to kind of break yourself open to let the light in, I guess.
And the lessons you learn about self-love are massive in the heart of this as well. Tell us about coming to the realization that love and romantic relationships, they're not so much about completing, but enhancing.
Yeah, I think that's, again, something that I saw from my mum and the different relationships she's had in her life. But for me, it's, you know, I really lost myself in my marriage, and that was because my work and career started at the same time that I met him. And so my whole world was those two things. And so in lockdown, when I couldn't travel like I did for work, and I didn't have the relationship and I was on my own, I guess I had to try to figure out what I wanted and what I liked, and establishing those sorts of rituals or habits that are just for you and that you can kind of have. But then when you do meet someone and you come together, you create your own. It's about not losing that. And I think that's really important.
When you came into your next relationship, which, spoiler, you have shared, didn't, you know, it has ended. It unfortunately ended in a bit of a heartbreak as well, but it was rich as well. Do you think you came into that relationship differently with some of those ideas?
Which I'll say, spoiler alert, I'm sitting in his lounge room and we're very much.
Ooh.
I know. I think I entered that with my eyes kind of wide open, and it was wide open about who I was and what I was bringing to it as much as anything else. And a lot of it was kind of removing the shame of, you know, what I guess was like, I remember when I started dating and I'd have to say I was a divorcee, and I felt so anxious about that. So I think it was kind of just walking in and being like, this is who I am, and you know, embracing that. And I think because I sort of wasn't ashamed of it anymore, it does change your dynamic and how you relate.
And so now you're reconnected, able to have better conversations, I'm assuming?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's all about growth. And, as you get older, you learn different things and experience different things. And I think everyone has to go on their own journey. But I am a hopeless romantic at heart. And I'm very glad that it's worked out.
Yeah, of course. And I think your mum's wisdom, you allow us to see some of her chaos, but also some of her absolute consistency and I think at times stoicism. How would you describe her?
Oh my gosh. My mum is like a hurricane. That is how I would describe her. But she's just colorful and chaotic, but she is an absolute rock, and she is a tiger of a mum, a mother bear, I guess, and she would do anything for us kids. And I think because my mum was 18 when she had my brother and 21 when she had me, she's been a really young mum. And I think that's made a huge difference in terms of the sorts of things that we do talk about or conversations that we do have in a good and bad way. I'd say there aren't many boundaries between her and I, but it's a really brilliant relationship.
That's great that you can appreciate that, because I'm sure there's some that go, I wish my mum had some boundaries, but
Don't get me wrong, I definitely have moments of doing that too.
You've
Probably,
embraced it.
in the last 48 hours I've thought that.
She has some fantastic wisdom, though. There's one, I mean, maybe this was just me going, I like that wisdom, where she talks about seeds. And this was something that she said to you, whether to, re-engage with a relationship or not. Can you share that with us? What did she have to say?
She does. She comes out with absolute pearls. But this was basically like whatever seeds you sow now are the plants that you'll grow. So whatever choice you make right now is what you're going to be building for the rest of your life. And that was, I remember when I had left my marriage, and, even though I had left, there was such indecision and such anxiety about whether to go back or not. And she just had this really beautiful way of putting it that was never, you need to do this or this is what you should do. And same in my latest relationship. She's been incredibly supportive, but she has said, like, whatever you do, it's the seeds you sow or what you grow.
It's massive. It's massive. And I think too, I love that the way that you are, I suppose, open about the place that cooking had in how you thought about all of these different things. And there's something to be said for, I think, the way, I know I did this tangent, but I know I did this with cross-stitching in lockdown. I was like, if I sew this and do this pattern is going to end up like that. And in a time where everything else felt chaotic, knowing that if I put that thread there and that thread there and would get this picture was just so satisfying.
Right.
Is that why cooking...
How long does it take you to complete something?
So, well, I actually am surprised at how quick I was able to finish some of these cross stitches. Like, I don't think I could do it now at all, but I would get through like a cross stitch in a week and then down to a couple of days. In one day, I did 3 because I made everybody a what do you call it? A dumpster fire. I made dumpster fires of 2020 and 2021 for a bunch of friends and just like hammered them out. But I realized I was finding satisfaction in the pattern and that it would get to what I wanted. Did you find that with cooking a little bit as well?
Yeah, nail on the head. Absolutely. It was about instant gratification. It was starting something and knowing, depending on the recipe, of course, but like within an hour, 2 hours, I could be either eating it or gifting it to someone. And it was what I could kind of control when everything else seemed so uncontrollable.
Was it strange to you to be finding that through cooking, which, at least the way I look at it, that's one of the things that Diego, your ex-husband, that he gave you, that he inspired a love for. Was it strange to process the grief of the ending of that relationship through cooking, knowing it was something that had been sort of from him in a way?
Yeah, it was actually really healing. It was actually, really beautiful. And I think that, like I was saying before, you can take so many different things from different relationships, but I feel like that was a gift that he kind of gave to me, and to have that passion for food and passion for cooking, albeit probably motivated by me wanting to be a better cook. I'm very competitive. And so there was it began with that, absolutely. But for me now, I love that. And I love that I've been able to kind of grow in from that girl that could only make tacos from a packet to being a little bit more refined in my cooking.
Yeah, you're a published chef in so many ways now. You can claim it.
But home cook.
Yeah. But as much as cooking became a pathway forward, you did also use it as a way to feel validated. How did that happen?
Look, and this was, again, I think when you're going through a breakdown or even just a lockdown, there's a lot of things are up in the air. And I just thought, that the solution for me was to meet the man of my dreams. So I just decided to cook for all of the men that I dated. And look, when they were saying that they loved my food, I thought they were saying that they loved me, which was very much not the case. And it was just misplaced for me. It was just a people pleasing, a way for me to kind of feel seen through food, but it was just all came from the wrong place. So by actually cooking for myself for once, I realized I didn't have to cook for other people to get them to like me, particularly not first dates.
No, not first dates. And it is interesting to me that the guys, I mean, it's probably not interesting. Of course, they're going to show up to your home to have a home cooked meal. Like, they don't care that they're going to a stranger's house. There's going to be a great first meal there.
Yeah, look, it was it was misplaced. I look at that time now and I think, what on earth were you doing? But yeah, I don't know. I loved it. I loved that I was pushing myself. I loved that I'm an incredibly social person. I loved that I was meeting new people and having conversations. Did it mean that I didn't have to do like 4 courses for a complete stranger who didn't even bring wine? No, but you know, you learn these things, don't you?
Yeah, but the things that we love in some respect should be something that liberates us. But it sounds like you kind of became trapped by them for a season.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just didn't find a voice to say you can leave my house now, which I should have done. But I think it's, again, just seeing the growth in that. Now I cook for strangers, but they're women in my house as a way to sort of connect and meet new people and provide a safe space for people to kind of be themselves, I guess, anonymously. I don't ever look at something and regret it. As much as I kind of look at some of those guys and think, oh, Charlotte, what were you thinking? I don't look at it and go, oh, I should never have done that. I think it was all for a purpose and a place. It just took me too long sometimes to realize certain things.
Do you still live by that philosophy of everything happens for a reason and that these difficult seasons are for a reason?
Absolutely. I would not change a single thing that's happened to me in my entire life, because everything has worked out probably exactly how it was supposed to, and I am who I am because of it. Even, you know, the breakup with the ginger, I used to joke to him that he should leave me so that I could really channel my depression around my divorce and then write a better book. But it worked. I think the book is what it is because that breakup happened at the time that it did, and I really had to sit on my own and not be distracted and, be sad. You know, like the first chapter about my mum was written in that time. And I don't think I would have ever written about that in that way had that significant event not have happened.
And each recipe really does tell a story. There's things in there from tiramisu to the simplicity of a boiled egg to the brownie for the ginger, if I'm remembering the connection right. There's also the cheesecake. Like it's all there, and it's so, I just want to eat every picture on every page because you've done such a beautiful job. Is there one recipe you're currently enjoying cooking the most?
Oh, I don't, like last night we made just a big Asian spread of dumplings and rice and miso eggplant. I think it's just comfort food at the moment, like big party kind of meals and stews, probably because I'm so cold after I get out from swimming my laps.
Why do you think food is so connected to both celebration and grief? Because in the times where you were really low, you weren't eating at all. And then in the times where you've got such great joy, there's an abundance.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's totally food and feeling, they're so intertwined. I feel like everybody would have a recipe or a memory of food, good or bad, that they could conjure, you know, if they were asked. But for me, you know, I can't eat when I'm sad. It's like my number one. That is the saddest thing of all, actually, that I have no appetite. But I don't know, I guess like I've just always been from a family of feeders. Like food was how we spent every minute of our lives. And even now I will constantly be thinking about what I want to eat next. Like I was devastated. I had to miss eating my porridge because I was running late for a meeting today. And then now I'm thinking about what I want to have for lunch and dinner already.
Yeah, why not? And it's the toss-up between, do I make something that is creative and lovely and has all of the little activated almonds and things on top, or do I just go for that quick microwaved egg?
Girl, I never activate almonds. That is not a thing in my house.
No, and I think people will open Heartbake and find that the recipes are easy to follow. They're simple, they're beautiful. Your story is, of course, relatable in so many ways. I will let you on an insight into my brain this morning because I knew I was going to be speaking to you. I blame it on this. I literally dreamt about someone that I dated last night and this whole tangent story, and I woke up going, Charlotte, this is your fault.
I hope they were nice.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was like a closed kind of moment. So I think people are going to experience a lot of different things reading your book, but what do you hope that they get away from it?
Oh, in all honesty, I just hope that someone somewhere feels seen and heard. Like that's genuinely why I wrote it. I think when I went through my breakup, I read so many books. I took a week off work, and not a single book that I read made me feel like I wasn't insane. And I think a lot of that was because there wasn't any 30-something that was just saying like, oh my God, life is a mess and it's imperfect. But there's so much perfection to be found in that. And so I just hope that people can realize that it's okay, because we're all a bit wobbly a lot of the time.
Well, thank you for sharing so vulnerably into your life story and for taking us into your kitchen and sharing your recipes with us as well, Charlotte. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. And I hope you go and cook something in honor of that ex-relationship.
Maybe I just got to go make myself some brownies. Charlotte Ree, author of Heartbake, which has got to be one of my favourite books of the year. It's definitely very telling when it comes to the modern dating world and just how much food plays a part in the way we process emotion and feel about ourselves in life's chaos and in its joyful moments as well. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. Share it with a friend. Maybe bake them one of the recipes in Charlotte's book and see what they think of it. You can find video versions of these interviews on the Hope 1032 YouTube page. And until next time, enjoy living this undistracted life.
This is a Hope 1032 production. Thanks for listening.